First of all, I would be remiss to say and not give my sincere condolences to the friends and family of Tyre Nichols. I have no words, only pain and anger and suffering.
Well, I could tell you, we were talking about the different individuals that made statements and were, expressing condolences and sharing in not only the grief, but the shock with the broader community and our community. And, as the head of the Denver Black Police Officers Association or organization, you've been one of those that have added your voice to that. You know what I mean? You're here publicly and you've been talking about it and all of those different things. And I said, I want to sit down and talk with Sergeant, Sergeant Carlin, just, check in, because it's another stain on, law enforcement, but us as a people also.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that, the Denver Black Police Officer Organization, this is why we exist. We exist because we were left out. This system was not made for us. And so there's a couple ways that you can change a system. You certainly have to change it from the outside with your voice, with protests, with litigation, with legislation items. But you have to be on the inside too. So we have to be inside of these systems that oftentimes are rooted in racism and rooted in systemic discrimination. But we have to be on the inside to know that those pretty things that they say they're doing and those pretty labels and those pamphlets, to make sure that there's some legitimacy to it, because a couple of days we saw something different. I think we pray and we hope that things will get better, and sometimes they do, and sometimes we're hit with the reality of it. So we have to be authentic in our conversations, and then we have to be passionate in us demanding authentic change. We're tired of the performative stuff. We're tired of the tokenism. We see now, let me tell you, everybody that's skin folk ain't kinfolk. We see now that institutions like policing, which it wasn't designed for us. I'm not telling your fan base anything they don't know. I'm not going to offend them.
And we've had these conversations before.
We've had them before. It wasn't mean for us. So very easily they'll toss us somewhere and say, see, and put the burden on that one black man, that one black woman, that one female, that one person to change this culture and this systemic institution that's been in power. Because that's what we're going to talk about a little bit later on. That's been in power for hundreds of years, and it doesn't happen that way. We make some strides, but then we're hit with what we've seen not only in Memphis. There's one in Huntington Beach where officers shot and killed a paraplegic. They said he was a threat. We can go back to in 2020, after George Floyd, and this is why I'm passionate about what I do. After George Floyd, in 2020, we still saw killings of unarmed black men and women that same year when the lens was on the system of policing. This system said, I don't care if you're watching me. This is about power and privilege, and I'm going to keep doing it. Who did we have? Tonte Allen Jefferson, Andre Hill, Daniel Perdue, a black man, butt naked, as we would say, suffering from a mental crisis, and he was considered a threat, butt naked. That year, the system still said that. So since then, we've been trying to make some strides, but this can't be placed on one person. We had a black president for a few years there. Did we end racism? No. So I think that we have to be careful that we say, hey, we got a black man in charge. Hey, we got a black woman in charge, and everything is going to be okay. No, we still have to be demanding. We still have to be looking at systems. We still have to be analyzing data. We still have to be holding people accountable for what they say, because I tell you what, you better be careful of that savior complex, because that person claiming to be the savior, they may have been the suspect that created that environment that they're now trying to say, I'm trying to fix. You created the problem.
When I think about you've been doing this for 25 years, and me personally, I can't watch the videos because impacts me to see it over and over and over and over again, particularly when that is a system. I call it state-sponsored murder in some cases, when individuals break the law. You know what I mean? And I know that these individuals will be able to have a trial, but a lot of us don't get an opportunity to have a trial. You know what I mean? We're assumed that, we're already guilty. What happened to us is based on our own behavior or where we're at or what we were doing. So a lot of black bodies are not making it to trial. How do you as a black woman, a black officer in a career where every day you're confronted with traumatizing situations, and you're seeing folks in sometimes the lowest dynamics, you know what I mean? Where they need law enforcement because something tragic has happened, and you pull up and you got to see it, and then you got to go away. Then the next day you see it again in a different dynamic, and all of those traumatic situations over and over and over again, and then being compiled with the stuff we see tangentially on the television. What kind of support do you get?
I tell you what, we certainly have a sense of resiliency. Our culture does. And certainly black women do as well, because we've always had to. We've had to be strong. We've had to persevere. We had to survive. We had to be resilient because we had to take care of our children, our family, or what have you. But I was a part of a forum not that long ago, and someone a lot smarter than I said, just because they didn't shoot us doesn't mean it didn't hurt. So we have to look at the impact that all of these incidents are having on our lives. And you talk about an incredible amount of PTSDs. You're talking about pulling from your faith. You're talking about having a purposeful life. You're talking about, being around, being supported by people, like-minded people who are legitimate in making some actual change. But yeah, it's tough. But we're used to that tough. But there has to become a time when we say that now is the time for it to be easy up on us. We can't constantly fight all the time, and that's why we make demands of legislators, city council, owners, people in positions to make sure that they're legitimate in what they're doing. Someone once said, hey, you have to work 150 times harder. I said, I only get paid 100%. So why do I have to work 150% harder? Why is the system set against me, and why aren't you doing something to fix it?
Well, when I think about that, Sergeant Carla, and by the way, she is the head, you're the president of?
I am.
Of the Denver Black Police Officers Organization.
Yes.
And what I want to ask, and this is some of the stuff that we were talking about prior to your coming, is this. Every organization, or even our body, we've got things in it that are not optimal, not working, need to be addressed, need to be taken out, need to be weeded out. And that's in everything. And so when something happens in the black community, that's how black people are. But when something happens within, say, for example, law enforcement, there's this silence. Even when you see or perceive what is wrong, and then some of that stuff comes out in court, which ends in lawsuits, etc. But when you see something that's wrong, there's seems to be a silence of like, and we can't just say it. Like, we can't say, you know what, and I was doing like this, you know what, we're standing with community because what you saw does not represent how we do policing, how we want policing to be done. We are working on that. This tarnishes our badge. It betrays the public trust, and we want you to just know that that is something that we are addressing. When we don't hear anything, it starts to seem like complicity, And so what role is silence playing in what I'm saying, betraying the public trust? Because some are looking at you like, you're not even supposed to be discussing this, but with us talking, this is what shows that we have communication and same expectations.
Well, I absolutely supposed to be discussing this, as does every other black family, as does every other person who operates with a sense of humanity. They should be discussing this. Absolutely. Everyone should be discussing this. Everyone should be outraged And everyone should have some sense of pain and hurt as a result of what they saw. Because we're talking about a lack of humanity. Silence is complicity. But also you have to look at the reason why that is. You know, we have to look at, you have to be courageous to come forward because you know you're outnumbered. We're talking about a culture and subculture in policing. Now, I know that, actually, I was down in Memphis when this was occurring. And when I was leaving, the National Guard was showing up.
Really?
They were. I have friends, I have family down there, so I was abreast of the situation that was going on. We have, and I know that now our police chief, Chief Thomas, and I know that he has condemned these actions, as have the Denver Black Police Officers Organizations. The night of, when we anticipated the releasing of the body cam footage, which I had been waiting for days, I sent out a message saying, let's be reflective of ourselves in this process. We're going to see something that's going to be very harmful. We're going to see something that's going to be very hurtful and painful. And we're going to see something that on the surface looks like us. And we're going to have some questions and we're going to have some reactions to that. And Brother Jeff, I think we need to have a deeper conversation. Let's look at some internalized racism. Come on now. Let's look at some self-hate. Let's look at some anti-black hate. Let's certainly address some anti-black woman hate. Let's look at some fake allyship. Let's look at some culture, some deep-rooted biases. Let's look at some implicit biases. Let's look at some confirmational biases, in-house biases. I don't like you because of that. So that creates this environment. I was asked, some black officers did that? Yes. Policing is about power. I've said that many times, folks. Policing is about power and privilege. That's what this represents. And who doesn't want power, Brother Jeff? Everyone wants power. And everyone has a need to do what? Have control over someone else. So oftentimes that leaves us, and unfortunately oftentimes black women, at the bottom of the bottom, like Malcolm X said, the most disrespected, unprotected, neglected person, the black woman. Because everyone wants to be in charge of someone. So those officers, certainly in my opinion, got caught up in the facade of what this means. Power and control. That's why we're happy when we stop certain people. That's why we're happy when we stop the mayor's son. And that's why we're happy when we stop athletes. And that's why we're happy when we stop attorneys and different things like that. That's why we can over-police black and brown neighborhoods, because we incite or we activate that core in you. That bias is scary. That's why we say those things that we say, because we don't want you to see what we're doing. Hey, don't move. Hey, keep your hands where I can see them. And what we do when we do our classes and when we talk to the community, we say, talk back. Say, I'm not moving. Say, I'm not doing that. This is a culture that I believe these officers got caught up in. And they thought they were blue and they forgot they were black. And that is the overwhelming message out of this. When I take off this uniform, I'm a Breonna Taylor.
Wow.
I'm a Tantiana Jefferson. And let's not forget that it took Erin Dean over 2 years to be even charged with her murder in Fort Worth. Derek Chauvin, over 2 years. I'm Sandra Bland. I'm any other black woman that's been affected when I take off of this. So we have to ensure that we have an additional lens. We have to ensure that our empathy and our sympathy and our grace and our responsibility to humanity doesn't get overshadowed because we put on this for 8 or 10 hours a day. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And when we see these awful events perpetrated by black officers, internalized racism, we're believing that all black people are suspects. We're believing that we can use this system with its policies and procedures that's designed to hide certain people only now are we seeing things in this age of cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
But the system is designed to hide certain things, and we'll throw you out what we want you to see, but we have the power to drive the narrative. That's why you need outside oversight. That's why you have to have someone on the inside to say, yes, we did that, but not really that. And that takes courage, because what's going to happen with that? Man, don't think that's going to come without a cost. It's going to be a cost, Brother Jeff. It's going to be some retaliation. It's going to be, you're going to be ostracized. You're going to be, minimized. You're going to be overlooked. You're going to be targeted. So it's very hard. You're going to be retaliated against. I oftentimes complain of that. That's going to happen. From who? From a lot of people, even someone that looks like you.
And when you think about this, and I've been hearing this this comment, it's the Scorpion Gang. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming a group inside of a group that holds themselves above the law, that goes out and do different things. But wrong is wrong, illegal is illegal, right?
All day, every day. It's just when you think you can do something wrong, and you have, and people have overlooked it. What did your grandma used to say? Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Your grandma say, hey, don't touch that. You find your finger just inching toward that. I think that's what happens. I think now we're getting information from other citizens sharing their experiences with this team. And from my understanding, it's supposed to be a proactive team that target violent offenders, murderers, shooters, robbers, carjackers, violent crimes. And most cities would have some sort of unit or something to mitigate these violent, situations. And here's this guy being stopped for reckless driving that they're not able to verify yet. It seems like there's another piece to it. And, I hear the news reports like everyone else. I hear some of the videos and the social media posts, and if there is something else that was there, what a shame that we're not strong enough. And what a shame about our friends beside us that are not strong enough to say, hey, buddy, take it easy. If this was over a situation in which this young man was having relations with his ex-girlfriend or the mother of his child or baby mama or whatever we want to call her, that was done on his part. How easy for us to hold a grudge and make someone pay. And why do we have that need to make someone pay?
Where do we go from a community standpoint? And when I say community now, I'm talking about, when something incredibly heinous happens in community. Whenever we hear the news, and we're always like, "Oh, let it be somebody black." You know what I mean? And then it's not, and they're like,
yeah, I say that with the active shooter.
Like,
I was like, oh my God.
Don't let it be. Because it sends a ripple effect across everyone. And so now, with this being largely black officers involved, everyone is like, how do we have these conversations? You know what I mean? How do we as a community navigate this moment?
It's tough. We think that we have some kinship because of our skin color. And the truth is, sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. I tell you, you would be surprised at the number of people who claim not to be black. I mean, they're claiming all types of percentages of everything else. I think the world has done a good job of making us hate ourselves. And like I said, I can't say enough about internalized racism, self-hate, anti-black hate, fake allyship with people who we think are going to help us. Those conversations are very hard because I expect someone who looks like me and who probably have had the same experiences as me to be more understanding and sympathetic to me. And oftentimes that's not the case.
So what do you recommend that someone who, like, you live in a dynamic where, at any given time you can call something about something and you're going off to some just like oh my gosh, things that everybody doesn't want to see, doesn't need to see, like, this is a crime scene, or this is or this is a missing child, or this is an abduction, or this is like all those different things. If we were to whittle some of that down, Sergeant Carla, what can we do as a community to just take care of ourselves psychologically in this moment?
Yeah, we have to do that. I started since 2020, the organization, we started Black Officer Mental Health Check-In, because it's hard to operate in this dynamic and not have an extra burden. And I've always said that Black officers have extra burden, because there's this pressure for you to pick a side. Am I Black or am I blue? I'm Black all day. This is a uniform. I take this off. And when I take this off, I may or may not get treated very differently, because then I'm all those other people out there. So we started the Black Officer Mental Health Check-In, where we partner with Code 4 Counseling and some other Black psychologists, so we can talk safely, without the code speak, amongst our own, where we think we should be safe, and express some truths, because things are harder for us. Because like I said, you're under pressure to say, whose side are you on? You're under pressure to perhaps act a certain way. Maybe these officers were under pressure to act a certain way. We don't know. So we have to check in with our mental health. So the organizations, we have those mental health check-ins, and we're going to continue those. We're going to continue to partner with our faith-based organization. Our Black community, we're rooted in that. That's all we had was the church.
And you all are out there with Kwanzaa and everything. Everybody knows, Sergeant Carla. You go,
let me tell
you in there.
Look, I'm legitimate. I'm the real deal.
No, you're in there. I'm everywhere.
I'm the real deal.
Man.
I just didn't pop up since 2020. I've been here because I'm legitimate in it, because I see the trauma that happens, because I feel the trauma every time I see it. Every time I have a conversation with a Black citizen and they tell me something that awful or something that's not so good that happened to them, it's like a mud cake. That stays on me, So, and that fuels my passion to legitimately, call out, false narratives, call out misinformation, call out disinformation that we have. But it also fuels my responsibility to partner with like Chief Thomas and members who are legitimately trying to do as much as we can in these systems. Like I said, we put the burden on one person or two people, do as much as we can to change the dynamic for it, but we have to all come together. This is a moment to be reflective of our responsibility to our community, to ourselves. We better be careful about that self-hate. Brother Jeff, it's so many of us that hate ourselves, and it's projected on the actions that we do to each other, how mean and how nasty we are to each other, how we tear down each other, the Willie Lynch syndrome, the pick-me, we'll sell each other out just for the favor of the white man or the white woman or what have you, because we're not secure in ourselves. We want to be special. We want to be in charge of someone. We want to have power over someone. We better look at ourselves and say, what is our responsibility to ensure that my community is in a better spot?
Wow. Well, I can tell you it's always worth the wait and hanging out. And Gerald, would just turn that down, Gerald. It's always great hanging out with you. Just again, your thoughts or your concerns or your message to the family of Tyre or the community on behalf of the Black Police Officers Organization, whatever you'd like to say.
Certainly our condolences out to that. Talk about a heart being ripped out. And I tell you that certainly every woman, mother or not, and I'm not one, felt the pain when he was calling for his mother to save him. When you get hurt, when you were a child, mama. It doesn't mean that daddy wasn't there, but it's something about that maternal thing. And I think that should have just hit to the core of not only Black women in general. This was someone's child. And certainly our heart and our condolences go out to the Nichols family. Our condolences go out to the honorable men and women of the Memphis Police Department who put on that uniform to go out and treat the community right and make it safe. We pray for peace and solitude for the city of Memphis as they try to once again manage this undeniable pain and anger. Anger. When is it going to stop? We did the marching in 2020. We did all the stuff. We did some legislation. When is it going to stop? As soon as I think I'm beginning to heal from this, what I call is PTSD, from all this trauma, here is more. And it's hard. So we need our faith-based community to come together and be legitimate. We need our nonprofits. We need our families to come together. It truly takes a village. This is about humanity, but we better check ourselves on whether we now become part of the problem. These systems and these cultures that we've been, I guess, ostracized from, and now we're inside, we want to show you subversively, I'm on your side. We have to be courageous in our actions to say, no, I'm standing on what's right and what's righteous. But I can tell you, Brother Jeff, it comes with a consequence.
Wow.
It comes with retaliation, and that's why it doesn't happen as much, because that's a hard burden. I'm anointed, I'm blessed and highly favored, and I'm going to keep doing it. But it comes with a consequence. It comes with a price.
Well, I can tell you, I want to thank you and Chief Thomas and everyone who has spoken out, publicly, in saying, you know what, not only is this unacceptable, but we're leaning on the side of the honorable ones that are doing it for the right reasons, the right way. And we were speaking earlier, the reason we feel law enforcement is at a higher standard because every moment you have an opportunity to take a life.
Absolutely. We should be at a higher standard. We have the ability to drive the narrative. We have the ability to come into your home. We have to be trustworthy. We have to be above reproach. We can't be the bad guy. We can't operate like that. We have policies in place. I think the deficit is we don't have consistent adherence to the policies. And that's why you create these people acting the way that they're acting. So we hope that nothing like that would ever happen in Denver. We support Chief Thomas and his direction, but we know that there's some subcultures in this system of policing because it's about power. And I can tell you that the Denver Black Police Officer Organization, we're going to be watching. And we're going to be holding people accountable. And we're going to be partnering with you, Brother Jeff, and other legitimate organizations to ensure that what we say we're doing for our communities, we're doing.
Well, Jeremy says they're ready to vote for you for mayor. No, you got another job lined up now.
I could be the 97th person on that.
Yeah, you could be the 97th. Throw your hat in the ring. Before you go, can you just, and not from the police standpoint, the organizational standpoint, just the Carla standpoint, who knows about law enforcement, and you're listening to all of these candidates saying what they're going to do as it relates to law enforcement, what should or individuals be thinking of when they're questioning candidates and what they're saying about law enforcement? What would you ask?
Okay. First of all, we have to understand it's a dynamic. This is a machine. So everyone initially, whether it's legitimate or just hopefulness or what have you, they want to come in and change this machine, Brother Jeff, that's been in place forever. And sometimes it can't. I remember being asked a question, do you support Chief Thomas and what can he do? I said, I do. But I said, he's one man. We need Chief Thomas a Chief Thomas type person on every level.
He's a good guy.
On every step, he is. We need that on every step. So we have to understand the dynamic of this. But then we have to ensure that the people that we vote for are going to make a commitment to bring in like-minded people. So we can have the octopus out. Because oftentimes we have a good head and then we have these bad tentacles. So we have to make sure that these folks who are promising to change the system, first of all, system is a machine. It's a dynamic. You go in and you do as much as it allows you to do. So we have to be honest and legitimate in thinking that. But we have to have them to make this commitment to say, I'm going to partner with these people who I'm asking for help. You're going to see some of these folks in these positions of power where you can change and direct actions I'm going to have some like-minded people in those positions so that when I say something from the top, it doesn't get lost down there. So we're talking about legitimacy. We're talking about someone not getting, as a young person said, caught up in the sauce. And we're talking about someone not changing and just saying something to get our initial vote, our initial interest, our initial actions, and then leave us by the side. We're talking about, you asked us for our help. We're going to give it to you. And now, what is our role in this? Because we're like-minded people. That's the only way we're going to change this.
Wow. Sergeant Carla Havert. She'll do her mayoral announcement in the next day or so because it's packed. So let's jump in there.
Until then, call me if you need me.
Until then, call when you need. And trust me, she's pulling up. She's pulling up. Sergeant Carla, thank you so much, and thank you to everybody. And I think we have to continue these conversations.
Yes.
And the reason we are always able to have these conversations is because we don't have conversations just in difficult times. We keep our conversations going. And it's called relationships. Because when it gets rough, folks tend to get all tense and all, et cetera. But you've got to have relationships that are long-standing, folks that you've been calling, et cetera. And that's why we're always able to have these conversations.
Absolutely. You just can't see me in a rough time. You have to see me in a good time. My house still smells like turkey from all those turkeys that I cook.
She's the turkey cook. We've almost given away 25,000 free dinners, and your oven is on. I don't know how you're gonna get that oven clean.
So folks, it's about legitimacy. I think that we're in a crisis in the Black community. I think we better look at who's saying what, and we better hold them to the fire. And this is our moment. We can't lose it here in Denver. We have a small community, but we're powerful. But I tell you what, we better make sure that these people who are now claiming to love us, that they put some processes in place so we can legitimately be okay. I'm really tired of having these side conversations and things are not right. And that's what fueled my passion. When someone says something, I'm like, not exactly correct. And boy, they get mad at that because I'm about legitimacy. That's why people can call me. We better make sure that in this city of Denver, Colorado, where we're about 10% in the city because of our outrageous housing prices, we better make sure that we have some true allies, not someone with some kind of savior complex, some true allies, some legitimate relationships so we can protect ourselves physically so that we can thrive legitimately, and so that we can create an environment for our family and our children to thrive and not be held hostage still by some of the slave mentality that exists in these organizations.
Well, I could tell you that she's not going to be the mayor. We're going to put her in the pulpit. She's always busy and she's not late. I'm telling you, I just called Sergeant Carla, said, let's get together. She's like moving stuff around and makes it happen and always does. And she said she was going to be here. She is right here. And we'll have more conversations because like Sergeant Carla said, we've got to take care of ourselves psychologically, emotionally, physically, etc. And particularly when this difficult time looks a lot like us. It's easier for us to say somebody else is doing something to us, but it's more difficult when it looks like us. And like you said, on the surface, it looks like us. However, when you put in the dynamic of power and all of these different elements, privilege, access, above this and above that, we've got a lot to unpack and uncover, and we got to do it together. We absolutely have to do it together because divided, we're going to lose. There's always going to be that one. But my question has always been, why just one? Why just one? And why do I have to work 150 times? And why do I have to do all this extra stuff? Why is it extra hard for me? And then we need to start breaking down some of those barriers. We have to force these HR departments, force these organizations to make sure that these environments are legitimate, are encouraging, are safe for us to thrive in, not be, controlled, but to thrive in.
And you're talking about something deep. You're talking about internalized racism. You're talking about biases. You're talking about hate. You're talking about racism and misogyny. And that's the core of pretty much every problem we have. And unfortunately, like these officers did, you get caught up in these systems because you don't see yourself as who you are.
Wow. Pastor Big T says, thank you, Sergeant Carla.
You know,
All right. Everybody, a great conversation. Don't forget, if you go down swinging, you just might score a knockout. Thank you, Sergeant Carla, and everybody who hanged in there. And we was kicking the bobo. We were just hanging out.
were you?
Well, you know how we can
Well,
do.
that's what we have to do.
We gotta hang out.
We do that anyway. Why
Yes,
why
we do.
can't we?
We've got to.
Why can't
and
we?
We got to continue.
Why can't we?
We always do.
We're the same. I just have on this polyester.
That's right.
I get followed around stores too. Now I can pick them out a little bit easier. I get followed around stores too, and then I start messing with them, picking up stuff and then running away. I'm like, gee whiz. Let me tell you something, folks. We better confront this hatred. We better confront these systemic issues, this racism, this prejudice that we see all over. I mean, people are losing their minds. We have Congress people acting without a sense of decorum. We have people in businesses selling us out. We better stand together to ensure that we're all right.
Wow. Stand together to ensure that we are all right.
Yeah.
Don't forget, go to brotherjeff.com, make a donation of any amount. We are powered by the people. We certainly appreciate you. And then there's the great Leanne Wheeler's favorite option. It is Cash App, $JEFFFARD. And don't forget about Chubby Curls, educating the natural community one scalp at a time. If you've got those skinny curls, make them chubby. And if you go down swinging, just might score a knockout. Rumble, young man, women, and community. Rumble, Sergeant Carla Havard.